So hello then. Yes. So this is QE, Philosophy, Ethics and Religious Studies. So yeah, if you're here, then obviously those subjects appeal to you. I should imagine that many of you have studied religious studies. So ultimately, that means that you've done some of the content that we will cover on the course. And if you're enjoying religious studies, then that's a good indicator that you're going to enjoy doing philosophy, ethics, and religious studies at QE. So yeah, ultimately, as I say, it's split into 3 parts. I generally tend to teach the ethics and the religious studies, and I work in a department of 2 with Dom, and Dom tends to teach the philosophy side. That just depends on how the how things are arranged in particular years. Questions come in. Do you have to have done RS at GCSE? So the answer is no, you do not have to have done RS at GCSE at all. You just really need to be able to have the qualifications for entry into QE, and that really does kind of get you onto the course. Now, we have recently sort of said that for English we could do with having sort of I think we put level 5 in English, but that's very much dependent. When you come for your interview, if we feel that you've got strong enough, you've done strong enough results in other areas, then we will be fine with you. So yeah, ultimately, as long as you've got entry into QE, you are pretty much sort of secured to get out of the course. So yeah, so what does philosophy, ethics and religious studies entail? Well, basically, on the ethics side, we'll be covering some of the things that you'll have done at RS. So we'll be looking at some ethical theories, that'll be new, but we'll be applying them to issues that you'll be familiar with, like abortion, like euthanasia, and we'll look at capital punishment, genetic engineering and embryo research. And then we also look at something which it tends not to be covered on the GCSE RS course, which is issues of animal life and death. We're currently, for example, looking at factory farming, which is something that students are finding quite interesting right now. We also look at blood sports, amongst other issues of animal life and death topics. So basically, what you're going to do is you're going to learn 3 ethical theories in the first year. You're going to use those to help resolve these ethical dilemmas. Which religions? So that's is that Kesha? So yeah, Kesha. We tend to focus. Well, we do focus on Christianity. There is a choice really on the curriculum, but for us, of course, as the teachers, to decide what we deliver. But it tends that most people have done more Christianity than they have other religions. So that means you come in with a base to help you, to answer a lot of the questions before you start, and that tends to be a useful approach. So yeah, also in ethics, in the second year, we look at some interesting topics like the issue of free will and determinism. Okay, yeah, I'll just answer this question. What does the philosophy part of the course contain? Oh, okay, right. Well, yeah, I mean, I'll give you a couple of ideas of what's going on in ethics, and then I'll jump onto philosophy, and I'll tell you all about that. So just bear with me a brief moment, and I'll come to that. So yeah, and actually some of the second year ethics topics do contain some philosophy. So for example, the issue of free will is very important to ethics, but it's also a very philosophical concept. So this is the question of whether or not we do actually have free will. It's something we take for granted. Generally, it's sort of, we start off with a notion of free will, but what you'll find is it's interesting. As soon as you try to challenge that notion, it's actually quite hard to justify. And many philosophers have looked at this problem, and we'll be exploring a number of philosophers. We also look at it from a religious angle too. So yeah, those are the sort of things that we're going to look at across ethics. Now, philosophy, the main thing that you're going to be studying in the first year will be the question of, does God exist? Okay, now, no matter what you study in philosophy, it sort of follows a similar sort of format, because ultimately we're trying to establish what sort of things are true. We tend to be dealing with questions that are otherwise unanswerable. Otherwise, they tend to move into other areas, like so psychology, for example, would have begun in philosophy as a philosophical question and moved as it became more of a science. In fact, to be honest, science itself started off with philosophy. Sorry, I think there might have been a question there that I didn't answer. Oh no, that's okay. All right, so so we answered the question. We looked at the question of, does God exist? And we look at that from a number of angles. Well, two in particular, really. One is experience. This is basically what we can know from our senses, from what we can see, feel, taste, etc. On that side of the question, we look at the teleological argument. Teleological argument is looking at evidence in the world and seeing whether that evidence can give us any answer to whether or not God exists. And we also look at it from the angle of reason, which is basically, can we come up with an argument, what we call a deductive argument, for the existence of God? And there we study the ontological argument, which you may or may not be familiar with. Some of you who have done GCSE RS may possibly have looked at some of these arguments briefly. Obviously, in A-level, we look at them in a lot more detail. So don't worry, if you are familiar with them, that's great. If you're not, that's not a problem either. So yeah, also in philosophy, we look at things like questions about the existence of an afterlife. We look at the problem of evil. Can we really believe in a God if in the face of all the evil in the world? And in the second year, we start to look at things like the philosophy of language, and more deeply into religious experience, for example. So I'm not sure if hopefully that sort of thing does interest you. What I always say in philosophy is that, you really have to have an interest. It has to be something that sort of, when you get up in the morning, you want to be able to come into that classroom and think, wow, we're going to really explore some exciting concepts today. And that's the sort of thing that I really enjoy. If you kind of sort of think about those things and think, well, am I really even interested in that sort of question? Then of course it wouldn't be the course for you. But we find that most students do find it very interesting and go home and have conversations around the dinner table and basically, and explore philosophy further in their own time, because they find it really interesting. You also asked about the religion side there, Kesha. So, we do also have religious studies, and the religious studies side of the course is basically, well, first of all, looking at questions about authority of the Bible, authority of the church, the authority of Jesus. We look at questions about, questions about secularization. So, for example, the idea that religion is starting to wane in the UK, patterns of that. And in that part of the course, we also look at thinkers like Richard Dawkins, who you may be familiar with, who are what we call militant atheists, and their views. Interesting things in the second year include, we look at the role of women in the church, and that's basically Christianity from a feminist perspective. So, some of you may find that that's a particularly interesting topic. Certainly the students this year really enjoyed that. So yeah, there's a wide range of questions that we ask. And so it makes for a very varied course. Now, another thing that's important to recognize is that this is not a coursework subject. So everything that you do is geared around essays. So when it comes to essays, basically, we will be helping you. Oh yeah, that is a question that you've got. I've got here actually. I hadn't noticed that. Sorry, I was too busy talking. So how much of is it exam or coursework? There's no coursework, all exam. Let's see, something else being added. Yeah, so basically what that means is that we start right from the beginning teaching you how to write the kind of essays that are going to help you to get a really good exam result. There are two types of essay question. There's what we call Ao1, which is just knowledge and understanding. That's mainly about explaining the theories, being able to give solid examples, you know, and basically using all your key words, your key language, and just explaining it very, very clearly. If you can do that, then you can do the Ao1. And every time you do an essay and you do a homework essay, we give you some really detailed feedback. We tend to do this on Google Classroom as well, which I'm sure you'll all be familiar with now, even if you weren't before, because I'm sure a lot of your work happens on that or a similar platform. And what that means, what in practical terms, is that when you've done an essay, it comes into us, and on that very same piece of work, we can give you the feedback, and then you can do improvements. And this is a really good process for just helping to move you on and to improve your work from start to finish. We also have Ao2 questions, which are evaluative questions. That's a little bit more complex, I guess, but again, you start off slowly and you work your way to writing better and better essays. So Ao2 is evaluation, and that means that you're going to be looking at both sides of a particular argument. Let's say you have an argument for the existence of God, and it was about the ontological argument. So the question might be, you know, is the ontological argument successful in proving the existence of God? In which case you're going to have arguments on one side, and you're going to have arguments from philosophers in this case, really, on the other side. So you're going to have to say, well, you know, these are good reasons why it does, and here are some really good reasons why maybe it's not so successful. And then you're going to have to arrive at a conclusion. That we also include a lot of analysis skills now. We're spending a lot of time on that at the moment, developing analysis skills. So this is going a little bit further and being able to say why a strength is a strength. You know, this is particularly strong because, and this is particularly weak because. And also being able to say why a particular point is significant. You know, these sort of things really help you to improve and move up the mark scheme and get top marks, hopefully. Certainly at the moment, our second years are doing some brilliant work. I mean, they are going above and beyond the mark scheme in many ways. You know, obviously not across the board. It very much depends on how hard people are working at improving, whether they're following their feedback, etc. But you know, as long as people are doing that, they really are improving, and they're improving to a great degree. So yeah, we'll help you to get there, so long as you obviously work hard, and we'll get you there. So, any other questions about the course? Okay.
Did you get that one, Chris, about whether the course, there's one here, do all courses at QE run? Is there a chance that there won't be enough people to go ahead?
Oh, okay. I can't. Hang on. I'm on open. Oh, right. Sorry. I think I'm on answered instead of open. So my mistake. I do apologize. Yeah. No. I can't see any situation in which the course wouldn't run. I mean, we've run quite quite consistently over the years. I mean, you know, very occasionally there's a course that's very undersubscribed that might not run, but our course is actually year on year we've actually been finding that the demand for the course has been kind of increasing. We in the last couple of years we ended up with more classes than we'd expected. So I can't really see any reason why that wouldn't happen. Does it matter what your view is on different subjects? That's a good question. Well, no, not at all. In fact, to be honest, we encourage people to have different different views, and absolutely they're entirely respected. We are very clear on that right from the beginning. We're very diligent in making sure that that basically we make people feel happy and comfortable in the classroom. I mean, it may happen that your view happens to be a minority view in the class, but as a teacher, I would be ensuring that that your voice was as equally heard and considered as everybody else's voice. So yeah, please feel that is something that you're entirely going to be entirely comfortable having any kind of view. Obviously, the only caveat on that is if you have views that are going beyond what our sort of safety and our kind of concern for others is about. But other than that, every view is equally respected. So are philosophy, ethics, and religious studies all one subject, Sarah? Yes, they are. They are in the sense that they all come under the same umbrella. If you're going to get one qualification at the end, but you'll have covered all three of those areas. I hope that answers that question. And do we do any trips? Well, this year, obviously, that has been a challenge. But we had been planning on doing some trips abroad. We haven't historically done a trip abroad, but we have had trips to things like lectures. I've taken people to other universities where they've had philosophy lectures on, and also to have a look around different universities. But we had been hoping to run some trips abroad, perhaps even to Greece, to see some some Greek philosophy firsthand, to find out a bit about that. Whether that will happen next year might be very much dependent on the sort of situation in the country as regards COVID and such like. But there's a very real possibility that could happen, perhaps in your second year, for example. Okay. Any further questions from anyone? Sorry if I answered your question a little late. I think I was stuck there on the answered questions rather than the open ones, so I do apologise for that. But hopefully, I've answered all your questions in the end. Anything else that you'd like to know? Okay. Well, I think that pretty much takes us up to time. Oh yeah, class sizes generally. Okay, so it depends really. So in the first year at the moment, it ranges anywhere from 15, 18, 19. That's the sort of general numbers. That's because we had quite a few classes. We had extra classes to what we expected, so it was spread out a bit rather than making the classes too big. In the second year, there are some classes that have got about 25 at the moment. I think that's the maximum we've got. But realistically, we get around everybody without any problems. It's even when the class sizes are a bit larger. And we also, in the second year, we tend to put on little catch-up sessions. And at the moment we've got support sessions. And they're much smaller classes as well. So if you needed to come and ask us a question about something that you needed clarity on, then we'd be able to help you out there as well. I hope that's answered your question there.